My name is Ryan. I am joined by my fantastic cohorts, Bones and Eric. We are going to be short Travis tonight, and we will all mourn his loss, but the better for me. And we are crossing the Nerdverse. We have a very, very exciting show tonight. One that has been built up for several weeks now. We've been kind of working on it, making sure it was right. And with it being our first show of October, it was duly appropriate. So before we get into exactly what we're covering tonight, let's do our normal stuff and cover some nerdy news. Either y'all have anything?
Yeah, I
Uh,
think the biggest thing is just the EA.
yeah.
I mean, the EA sale that isn't final yet from everything I've read everywhere. It's still like in the works. So I don't know if it's going to go through. I imagine it will. But basically 55 billion is what EA was sold for.
55
Um,
billion.
yeah, that's a little bit of money.
Yeah, that's hard. And there's so many weird rumors about the EA sell kind of floating around. Do we know anything for sure?
So I know it was sold to obviously not Saudi Arabia itself, but it's an investment group out of Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
That's basically what I've found so far. But yeah, nothing's been finalized basically. So we'll
Hey,
see how it goes.
that's still a wild move. 55 billion is an insane amount.
It's a bit of money.
Wild. Yeah.
Uh,
I'm not
Well, I
gonna lie,
mean,
that kind of gobsmacked me a little bit. I'm just sitting here trying to recover because there's been a whole bunch of talk about, especially in the entertainment industry, about losses and gains over the last year and a quarter, because of the massive hit to streaming, right? Like streaming's been seeing massive declines and loss of funding because people are canceling. Everybody's starting to recognize that, having 15 streaming services so I can watch all my shows is basically worse than cable, and they're bailing. And so we saw record drops in everybody but Netflix, and Netflix was up about 8 million, but they're also canceling massive amount of shows under the guise of innovation. Um, but even everything that every streaming industry lost over the last year does not even get close to what EA just sold for. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we haven't seen a whole lot of big hitters come out of EA in the last year or two.
I mean, they make
I
the
mean,
sports games, so they're
Fair
always
enough.
yeah, I was gonna
popular.
say the biggest thing being the sports games, which if you look at like it kind of fits in with what they've been doing. So the people that bought it is PIF, Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund. Um, but yeah, so you gotta look, they bought like a football club, they got into boxing, they got into golf. So a lot of the big things that EA is known for is kind of like probably why they purchased it, I would imagine. So it's gonna be
Yeah.
interesting though with games like oh my god, why can't I think of it? I had it on the tip of my tongue. The one everybody loves, Andromeda. What was it?
Oh, Mass Effect.
Yes. So a series like that, like, are they still going to produce
I
and
do not
make
expect.
content like that?
I don't
Yeah.
expect that to be a thing. Mass Effect as a franchise is very well beloved, but after Andromeda's botched release, it's kind of poisonous right now. Everybody's afraid to touch it. So
Yeah, but I just mean in the sense of like where it's going to be made now,
yeah.
coming out of Saudi Arabia. Like,
Well,
will it change like what they do with video games from EA and stuff like that? I'll be curious to see.
if
Maybe
I,
it'll be better.
right, yeah. If I was gonna make a
I
guess,
mean,
I don't know what the details or the minutia are as part of the deal, right? Like I don't know what the purchase of EA actually entails. But if it did come wholesale, then they could probably recount a lot of their expenses by parsing out a lot of the IPs, right? They sell Mass Effect to a different studio, and they can get a pretty penny for a lot of their stuff. I mean, the Madden is Madden. Does EA do Madden?
yep.
So
Yeah,
yeah, the
EA does
Madden,
like every sports game.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Madden IP alone is going to be a hefty sell.
The FIFA
So,
games.
oh, the
They'll
FIFA
keep
games,
all the
yeah,
sports because
Yeah, but
that's
they're
what
gonna
they
keep.
do.
They're definitely gonna keep the sports games for sure.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
but
but
it's
see, I
kind
yeah,
of
don't
they're not going
expect
to do
them.
that.
I don't expect them to hold on to Madden because that's.
why?
I do.
See,
Why
I
wouldn't they?
expect them to rebrand it because the attachment to John Madden through the way that U.S. football works, I expect them to redo it.
That's name recognition. They're gonna. Why would they change anything that works already?
I mean, that's a fair point, actually. The name recognition is a major sell.
That kind of brings me into something that you're talking about streaming. I could have two pieces of news, one kind of crazy and one fun. Um, but with uh, Xbox, Microsoft raising the price
Oh,
to
yeah.
Game Pass by 50%. That
Absolutely.
is insane.
Yeah, no, Game Pass Ultimate now costs, what, 3 times as much?
$30.
Yeah. And so
$30.
you're talking just the Xbox Ultimate Game Pass alone is almost twice as much as a Netflix subscription.
Which
And
like,
that's
okay, you get a lot of you get access to all of the games, right? Which is nice. But like for $30, most of those games are under $30, except for like the most recent ones, right? And I
yep.
don't really play more than one game a month, so it's not like that's even saving me money at this point. And I think everybody agrees because they literally crashed the website, like canceling their subscriptions.
Yep.
Like so many people were going to cancel their subscription that it crashed the fucking
Well,
Game Pass
and no
site.
matter which way it goes, because there's a major controversy right now over that, right? Because did they crash the website or did Microsoft panic and shut it down to avoid everybody getting to
I think
cancel their subscriptions?
they probably crashed the website.
I think I'm in the same boat as well. Like I think they probably crash it. I know I'm going to be canceling mine. I'm not paying $30 a month for that. That's absolutely ridiculous. Um, and like I can't believe that's not even including like I got to put my words in order here. Imagine what you could do with $30 a month on Steam. In just Steam sales alone,
Yeah.
$30. I mean that's got I bet you it's 6 games a month that I could download and play on Steam, and that's if I'm avoiding indie studios. Like, and you shouldn't always buy from indie studios. They're the best. Um,
Uh,
but yeah, no, that's insane. And you're already having to pay Xbox just for the privilege of being online with Xbox, and that's not cheap itself either. I think it's $20 a month for the Xbox Online access. And so, no, they're shooting themselves
Oh,
in the
you
foot
have to
with
pay
this
for
one.
both?
Oh yeah,
Oh, that's like a kick in the teeth. I
yeah.
didn't realize that.
My more fun news though is I didn't realize it. It came out in August 20th, but and book 2 comes out next week. It's Event Horizon Dark Descent. So there's a prequel comic
yes,
for the movie Event Horizon,
which is an
and
absolute classic. If you haven't seen it, do it.
yeah, it's a Hellraiser in space. Love it. It's
Yeah,
actually it kind of fits one of the themes of the show actually.
yeah, I would agree with that. I honestly think this is the best way to try to explain. Like, Event Horizon is the best way to try to explain the warp in 40K to
Yeah.
somebody. Like, yeah, this is pretty close. um,
All right, what
no,
you got for news?
so I have 2 bits of news. One of them is kind of the timing on it's a little inconsistent. And so some people swear that it's been released 2 weeks ago. Some are saying it's going to be released on October 11th. I cannot find a definitive answer. um, However, so I'm going to go with Image Comics' actual stance on it. But we are looking at the release of Book 7 and the second story arc for Rook Exodus being released, and I am unbelievably excited. Rook Exodus is being put out by Ghost Machine under Image Comics. And the first 6 books, guys, like that is some of the most beautiful artwork and fantastic storytelling that I've ever encountered. Highly recommend it. It is completely kind of its own thing. Ghost Machine's trying to put together kind of an extended universe with some of their works. And so I'm not sure how Rook Exodus fits into that just yet. But the story itself is cool. It's kind of a sci-fi, Western, post-apocalyptic vibe, and it's all done to this really subtle undercut to the way corporations kind of rule the world. Highly recommend Rook Exodus, and Book 7 is coming out either right now or very, very soon. On the subject of right now, and this is going to be news for a lot of our viewers, we have episode 1 of Campaign 4 of Critical Role is going to be airing directly following our episode tonight, um, starting my local time at 8 o'clock. And so I'm very, very excited. We're actually going to see Matt Mercer stepping down from the DM's chair and stepping up to the players' table. And the big chair is going to be going to Brandon Lee Mulligan, who is fantastic. You probably know him from a plethora of geek internet stuff at this point. So I'm very excited for Campaign 4. Definitely going to watch that directly following the show. But now that we've got our nerdy news out of the way, to reveal what tonight is going on, we are doing Everything is Punk. Now, this is an episode from Bones' design. I'm very, very excited about it. And we're going to be covering fandoms as an aesthetic, I think is the best way to put it. And going over things like cyberpunk, steampunk, diesel punk, and more. So Bones, I think we're just going to start it off with you, man. What brought the episode up?
Yeah, so we got like there's just this like genre, right? Where we always say like these things are punk, like these like cyberpunk, like you said, like solar punk, all these things. You know, it's just literally at this point it can be like any word plus punk.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge, and it's not like you think punk and like, I mean, what do you think? You get like counterculture, you like punk rock music, like
Yeah.
anti-establishment, and that's what it is, plus an aesthetic.
Yeah.
Like that's
Well,
kind of how I like to look at it. Like cyberpunk is neon and tech and then punk, right? And then
yeah. Actually, I think that's a perfect way to put it. See, I've always attached it to again, I'm going back to punk, like the cultural movement, right? I think you nailed it. Anti-establishment. It's very rebellious attitude, but more importantly, their aesthetic was very do-it-yourself. It's meant to look kind of ragged and asymmetrical, and it was very identifying, almost like uniform. And I think that carries over when we use it in part of the aesthetic for things like steampunk, cyberpunk, solar punk's a fantastic example. All of those art styles have this this ethos of do it yourself, make your art, and wear it.
It's like
yeah,
a playground for aesthetics.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy
Yeah.
what people do with like punk compared to like the other stuff. Like punk's one of the few things where you can kind of do your own thing. Like you can take something and make it yours in a sense, even if it's like something as simple as like Iron Man. Like there's all kinds of different Iron Mans that have been done throughout all the different punks, and
Oh yeah. I guarantee you,
it's
Stark
incredible to see.
Stark Punk is got to be a thing. I haven't actually Googled that to make sure, but I guarantee you, Stark Punk is a thing.
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, it really just like it comes from like in all of these genres, there's like something to rebel against, like an empire or capitalism, you know, like corporations, uh, and there's somebody. So all these punk genres also all very character driven. You're always looking at the view from the street level, you know, of the
Absolutely.
characters that are fighting for something. So these are like a kind of the identifying features of what makes I call it a dash punk kind of genre, which is any of the you know
Yeah.
ones that we've
Insert
listed.
word here.
Yeah, it can literally be anything like Western, a cowpunk. That's what it's called, cowpunk.
Cowpunk.
It was a fun one.
Well, and
So
we saw a lot of the use of this kind of like insert your word here punk stuff with the release of Starfield, because the development team called it NASA punk
yep,
during the entire release, and I think that's a great way to put it. It really kind of sums up what they were trying to do, because they're wanting to have a futuristic sci-fi game, but with modern space technology aesthetic, and so perfect. Boom, NASA punk.
yeah, yeah. I mean that's it.
Yeah.
That's kind of
So I think what we should do is look at the first one. Like what was the first one you had mentioned, Bones? You want to do? Was it Cyberpunk?
yeah. So actually, I kind of went and I found kind of what I think are the two most popular, plus the kind of most up and coming one. And so, like first, I think what is hot right now, still coming off of the release of like games like Cyberpunk 2077, is you know Cyberpunk, um,
Absolutely.
which is a genre I think really codified, planted that flag with Blade Runner in the 80s.
100%.
Like that, Blade Runner is the definition of cyberpunk.
I
Akira,
absolutely agree.
the anime.
Akira is.
Ooh, what's the race on that one? Who hit first? Because they
I
both
mean,
have a decided cyberpunk.
either
I'm
way.
not saying which one's first. They're both very prominent
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the
yeah.
cyberpunk like
Akira's
world.
1988
Like
because it was the year I was born. I know that. I think Blade Runner was like 1980 or something earlier. I think Blade Runner was
yeah,
earlier.
no, Blade Runner was first. If
So
that's the year of
80,
Akira,
82
Blade
on
Runner.
Blade Runner. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, no, actually, I'm glad we're opening on Cyberpunk because I have a few of my own theories on that. Cyberpunk stands out to me for one very distinct reason when we compare it to a lot of its siblings or successors, in the fact that Cyberpunk hit real hard right at the end of the 70s, going into the 80s with the rise of technology, right? And there was a lot of rebellion, a lot of flashback on both sides because there was entire sections of the world that was terrified by what technology was accomplishing, right? We had seen a massive change in lifestyle come from simple technologies, things like the assembly line, right? And a lot of these industrial advances in technology, and now suddenly we were seeing it in everyday life. Like everybody, I mean, by 1982, everybody had a microwave, everybody had a TV, and everything had transformed from this very subtle media experience, things like radio shows and World of Worlds, into something where now technology is an everyday part of our life. It's everywhere and in everything. And to give Cyberpunk the credit that it's due, they took that exaggerated cyberpunk aesthetic, again, very Blade Runner, neon lights, mega cities, and evil corporations, and it never went away. It never died. It never took a back seat. I cannot think of any point in my life where cyberpunk was not a very prominent aesthetic in
Yeah.
nearly every facet.
I'd say that there's like some times where it kind of waned a little bit, and some other steampunk, especially, like kind of maybe like became more popular. But we'll get to that. Um, but yeah, Cyberpunk has been around, even I would say probably before Blade Runner, but like Blade Runner is like its flagship, like that's what
I agree.
defined Cyberpunk for and yeah, like the theme, like one of the themes of always included in Cyberpunk are these corpo, like these mega corporations that control everything, uh, and then this like man versus machine kind of which is which, right? Like you have like the synthetics, and you have augmentations and stuff like that. So uh,
Oh,
it
absolutely.
is like that. Like you're talking about, it's like that explosion of technology, and people starting to think like what's to come, right? Like man and machine melding together
Tron.
because we're advancing so much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and we see a lot of spiritual successors through the 80s that really captured cyberpunk in a lot of different ways. For any of our listeners that are more of a, let's say you're more of a fantasy guy and not so much into the science fiction, right? There was a blend for that too that was really popular starting in the mid 80s that continues now, and that's Shadowrun, which is just a cyberpunk science fantasy. And instead of it being man versus machine, it's man versus magic versus machine, and how all that goes. And I think it's a really cool way to blend everything together. And the fact that Cyberpunk could bridge that gap so easily, it's got staying power. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I think it's not going anywhere. And I mean, it is like a fun aesthetic. Like look at Cyberpunk Edge Runners, the anime. I don't know if you've watched it. Super good.
Oh, so good.
Looks great. Like the character designs are cool. It's just
The
like
story was amazing though. Like
yeah,
not even just
yeah.
the pictures, like the story gets you. Like one of the best like animes that Netflix has done, hands down.
I agree.
And stuff like that. I mean, in games like 2077, and also like the RPGs like Shadowrun, and also the Cyberpunk Red,
Deus Ex.
which is an R, yeah, Deus Ex.
Yeah, becoming human. That's a fantastic. So yeah, to kind of explain it to anybody that doesn't quite know if we haven't covered it right. Now that's the heart of cyberpunk, right? It is technology in the extreme. It is corporate greed and corporate control in the extreme, and it is the merger of machine and technology as a culture, up to and including robots and cybernetics and all that kind of stuff. One of the things that stands out to me when it comes to the cyberpunk setting, it was drilled into my head from Shadowrun, but I think it's everywhere, right? And we can see it in our lives already. And that's the fact that in many of these you have implants that you work with, right? Some of them are big and grand features, but others are very small. Things like a cell phone is implanted into your jaw and you can just use it. And a lot of AR, VR like glasses and stuff so that you can kind of go
Or
around
just
with
your
this.
eye.
Yeah, or just your eyes. Now, all of that being what it is, what stands out to me is the fact that without the appropriate firewalls, you can overload your hardware with ads by walking into any civilized section. You're talking invasive ads in the extreme.
Yeah, I think so. That's one of the things that like we actually, I guess, should mention also is like the story of the of Cyberpunk is always from, like I said, like street level. So you have like hackers and
Hmm.
data runners and just like everyday people, and their life is, despite this fantastic technology that exists, life is just as shitty as
Oh
it
yeah,
always is, right?
almost
Like in fact,
shittier.
it's
Like,
probably worse. It's worse.
yeah,
And, like there's a kind of like a little thing they say for cyberpunk. It's high tech, low life,
yeah,
and that's like the definition, right? Like survival is the punk part of cyberpunk.
yep. That's actually a fact. Survival is absolutely the punk part of that. Because none of the stories are ever from the CEOs or the high end guys, right? The story is from from the common people that is
Yeah.
struggling against that.
But even from the CEO's point of view and stuff like that, it's still not great. Like there's still like the worlds are never nice. Like there's that's the
I think
one genre.
See,
that
That's the one
Vince.
genre though, like where it's never good. Like there's never some uplifting, like amazing, like story.
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
there's definitely never any
Altered
good
Carbon,
ending. Yeah,
Altered Carbon, or was it Carbon Altered?
yeah,
yeah,
Altered
Altered
Carbon.
Carbon.
Anyways, yeah, that was the only one where I think like CEOs really lived it up, and then it was still difficult.
See,
Like
I'm
it
I
still
actually
I,
wasn't like
I disagree because like okay, so I'm going to take an example, and it's kind of a wild one. The Alien franchise takes
ooh,
place in a cyberpunk world, and
absolutely.
especially Earth during that time. And people like Wayland Yutani fucking had a great life. He did whatever the fuck he wanted.
So actually, to support you in that, I'm going to bring up another example. It is a very modern example, as I think there's only one episode released. It's on YouTube. Check it out. It's called Knights of Guinevere. It's by Glitch Entertainment, the same people that did Amazing Digital Circus, and that is definitely a whimsical take on a dreadful cyberpunk existence. And in this one, most of the common people still live, let's say, down on Earth, right? And it's shitty. We're literally living in piles of garbage, eking out what we can, while the wealthy, the 1%, are on giant hovering cities that just stay above it all and can't touch me. I don't care what you do down on the planet, like whatever. Um, and so I think I agree with Eric in the heart of the spirit of what he means, and the fact that cyberpunk doesn't have a good ending really for anybody, right? Like nobody really wins. Um, and I think that that's 100% accurate. The part of the dystopia is the heart of cyberpunk, right? Like it shows this is what late stage capitalism gets you. Um,
but
and
even if
that
you look at the CEOs, they get messed up by the poor people all the time. That's the whole story.
oh yeah,
Is like some grand CEO like takes it from like the impoverished people, and like they have all this security all the time and all these things, and like can you imagine living that life, man? Like even though they're filthy rich, like constantly dealing with or having to worry about hackers and different things. Like
oh, you make yourself a target, absolutely. Well,
I'd
and
much
that's
rather be rich today than in some cyberpunk style world.
right. Well, and I think that again, the center of the spirit of cyberpunk is exploitation,
Yeah,
right? The exploitation of the planet, exploitation of the people, and exploitation of the technology.
I mean that's
Now,
kind of a theme of all of the punk dystopians, is
yeah.
exploitation.
Well, I mean, and honestly, even the ones that aren't dystopian, again, we're going to get into steampunk a little bit later, but exploitation is a major part of that storytelling too. But before we deviate too much, let's talk about cyberpunk as an aesthetic. So, what are some things that you consider definitely at the heart of the cyberpunk aesthetic? I'll start off, and I think that the contrast of technology versus clothing, and so you get a lot of ragged black leather on top of shining steel, um, like armbands or even cybernetics.
Yeah, I think bright colors, like the neon lights, the neon clothes, like also it's kind of that late 80s, like
Yeah, the electric clothing that actually lights
yeah,
up and shit.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
The absolutely crazy haircuts.
Oh yeah. I mean, that definitely
Like
harkens
they're
back to the yeah,
always
it harkens back
wild.
to the actual punk movement, right? Where all of your design aesthetic, your hair with the spikes and the mohawks and stuff was designed to show that you are counterculture. You're doing what you want to do, to hell with looking good, and I think that is absolutely a cyberpunk core thing. Rock 5 mohawks. I
And then
don't care.
implants. And then
Yeah.
implants are always the biggest
Of
thing with
course, yeah,
Cyberpunk
yeah.
compared to some of the other ones. Is the noticeable
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. Because like I
implants
said,
they
like it's
have
like
on their
man,
body.
man versus machine. So like that's got to be one of the defining pieces I think of Cyberpunk. Also, is like that augmentation or the appearance of augmentation.
Yep. Well, again, then we harken back to the DIY aspect, the do-it-yourself aspect to the clothing, because nothing looks like it's supposed to. Nothing looks like it goes together, right? And so it's a badass cut, but the jacket doesn't match the pants, and your shirt is whatever. And you have to work it all around your implants and stuff. And so it very much lends that handmade aspect to the entire, I guess, costuming would be the best way to put it. Um, and then you plug it in and glow up like a neon sign. I think a good cyberpunk we didn't cover that's on the fantasy side is going to be Arcane.
I don't think Arcane's Cyberpunk.
You don't think that hits
I don't
cyberpunk?
know. It's
No, there's not computers and stuff really, and like there's not like that much techno. There's some augmentation, but I think well, you know what? Let's jump into the next topic,
Yeah,
steampunk. I think Arcane is
steampunk.
steampunk, far
So
more steampunk.
So steampunk aesthetic, guys, is going to be another punk that we're looking at. It's going to keep the same core values for the punk terminology as we talked about in cyberpunk, with the anti-establishment counterculture and the do-it-yourself kind of ethos. But instead of it being dystopian future technology, it's Victorian era aesthetic, and early technologies is almost a fantastic, and I mean that in a way of being high fantasy point of view.
And
I,
it's all
I
inspired by like Jules Verne and like H.G. Wells and
yeah,
stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Especially Jules Verne,
I would
huge in that.
argue that most steampunk stories are also still dystopian.
See, I
Oh
think
yeah,
I absolutely agree with you. There are exceptions in my opinion, but not many. Because even you talk about the big ones that are currently, out there for consumption, things like Mortal Engines, dystopian.
Ooh, is that
S-
steampunk or is that diesel punk?
Ooh, that's a
Yeah,
good
yeah,
point.
yeah.
Okay.
that'd be Diesel Punk based on what I'm
It,
Yeah.
looking at.
yeah, yeah, I think you're right. It's got steampunk elements in my opinion, but I think that's just because the literature focuses around London.
I also think
Um,
that, I mean, I think that there is just like some overlap between steampunk, like steampunk, diesel punk. Like a lot of these have like similar kind of themes and even
yeah.
aesthetics.
Well, and so I'm a big fan of the steampunk aesthetic myself. I use it a lot in a lot of my stuff. I have several different steampunk outfits that I'm very proud of. And actually, one of my favorite ways I've ever heard it put, actually came from a buddy of mine. I think it was Ugly that told me. It's like, Ryan likes steampunk because he's just a emo goth, but he likes his leather brown instead of black. And I'm like, that's pretty fucking accurate, actually.
You know,
um,
I have a deep cut for a steampunk uh, uh, media that
Hit me.
you probably don't think about. Wild Wild West.
Yep, 100%. That one was what, 99?
Yeah, something like that. I don't
Something like
know.
that. Wild Wild West. It was Will Smith and I know the rest of the star-studded cast that movie had.
Yeah,
It's widely considered one of the worst movies ever made. But it is
I don't think
super
so.
steampunk. See, I don't think so either.
It's
Um,
very campy or something. But, you know, it's not like good, but it's
Yeah.
entertaining.
yeah, Wild Wild West is 99. So ironically, we just watched this movie not long ago, me and my family, as part of the movie night. I encourage everybody to go check out the trivia on IMDb for Wild Wild West, because that was enlightening. So Wild Wild West currently has a 16% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 30% on viewer and feedback. It is not highly regarded by anybody that is not a millennial, and for whatever reason. Um, and what struck me the most is that I absolutely agree with Bones. The movie starring Will Smith, Wild Wild West, super steampunk movie, 100%. The original, which I believe was a TV show from the late 60s or maybe early 70s,
Something like that.
was not. That was
Yeah.
a gritty noir cowboy show about the darkness of living in the West. Um, the movie's not that. It is not that at all. Eric, what you got?
So I saw it. It was a pretty good movie. I liked it. But I think my favorite, if I had to look at steampunk, probably the Sherlock Holmes movies. Robert
Ooh,
Downey.
the remake, yeah, with Robert Downey Jr. That's definitely got a steampunk aesthetic to it with the
Yeah,
gadgetry.
I mean, I would argue that they're like steampunk light, or maybe
Yeah,
cyberpunk,
no,
but
definitely not
like
like full blown.
yeah, but yeah, I agree. I agree.
See,
But
for
I
me,
think those movies are really well done.
when I think steampunk, I kind of land in two different directions. Now, here's where steampunk gets a little bit weird, right? So like Bones was talking about earlier, steampunk generally is much more accepting of magic, right? We accept a fantasy element into steampunk because you get hand wavy with steam powered computers and airships, which I would say are the two like cornerstones of the steampunk aesthetic. Is because you have that Victorian era adventure vibe, where the world is out there to explore, and so of course you have people in dirigibles and airships um, doing that exploration. My go-to steampunk, if I'm trying to figure out an aesthetic, is actually Stardust. I think Stardust is a great way to put it. I think the airship uh, scenes in particular will give you a good insight to that. And I'm going to bring up Howl's Moving Castle because I think, again, this crosses the diesel punk line a lot, but I think Howl's Moving Castle is a great steampunk idea. It's kind of same as Mortal Engines, where you just have moving buildings and that kind of stuff. Um, and then I guess the one that's kind of undisputed is going to be, is it called Astro Boy?
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
think.
Astro Boy is not steam powered stuff though. Just that's the thing. Like the idea that steampunk is essentially like at its most base form is like steam powered science. Like
Yeah, steampunk.
they have
Yeah,
modern science things, like I said, computers, airships, stuff like that, that are just powered by steam. They essentially create magic with steam powered devices, uh, and still maintaining like the Victorian era
yeah.
aesthetic.
Well, and I think that Eric really kind of crushed something. The earliest media that we draw inspiration from, of course, is going to be literature with Jules Verne and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Um, I think is a great like starting point. We get a lot of the Captain Nemo style aesthetics come out of that. Also, I'm drawing a blank on who wrote it. Super famous author, The Time Machine. Um,
Oh,
H.G.
H.G.
Wells.
Wells.
H.G. Wells, yes, huge influence on steampunk aesthetic and the way things work. And the biggest difference I think between steampunk and cyberpunk so far for me is that steampunk, while still dystopian in storytelling, carries a lot more hope for the protagonist.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, I mean, so there's like not as much, I think, like corporations, like the capitalist exploitation of people, but it's usually typically, I feel like more like an empire or something like that, usually like exploiting people for labor or something,
yeah.
um, over, yeah, like I said, like the corporations.
Well, I think that really nails
What
it because a major issue or a major set of the protagonists, right? So in Cyberpunk, you're going to have your runners and your hackers and that kind of stuff. Your main characters in Steampunk more frequently are engineers and explorers, these
Mad
adventurous
scientists.
spirits, mad scientists, yeah, that are getting out of the controlling umbrella of the empire, so to speak. We're gonna be outside of the law. We're gonna act outside of the cultural norms, against the wishes of the ruling class, and we're going to do things like stitch a whole bunch of corpses together and have it struck by lightning. Um, and the whole like, if anybody ever got into Penny Dreadful, the resurrectionist movement is very steampunk in its vibes. If you wanted a dark, gritty steampunk, I would say the resurrectionist movements through the Penny Dreadfuls is a great way to go.
one thing I find funny about steampunk is like everybody's got the goggles, but the goggles were definitely not like a Victorian fashion
Yeah,
thing
No,
whatsoever.
I don't
But like
know, but
everybody steampunk has some form of goggles on their
yeah.
head or somewhere,
So
and it
I'm,
just had nothing to do with that era at all.
I think
I
that
will say that like talking about the goggles, that I think steampunk is probably the most of the punk genres that has made its way into real life aesthetics. Like people often wear steampunk stuff. Like I've seen it in real life, just out and about downtown. Like people wearing, top hat with gears on it and stuff like
yep.
that. Like it is the one that I encounter in the real world more often than any of the others.
See, I think I agree. And I always kind of, because Eric's right, the goggles became a central part for a lot of steampunk aesthetic, especially in wardrobe, right? Cogs, gears, Okay, cool. I see where you got there. I'm going to assume that the goggles became such a thing because a lot of our featured literature was engineers, right? You read a steampunk book about an airship, very rarely is it going to be about the captain. Now it's going to be about the little engineering chick who's crawling through all the clockwork and dealing with the machines. Um, and so she wears the goggles, right? Again, airships, you're traveling through the air. There's no windshield, there's no containment. It's just generally a boat under a balloon, and so you wear the goggles, protect your eyes. Um, Now that's about as far as I can justify the goggles for steampunk, I think,
Yeah.
because Eric's not wrong. It has nothing to do with Victorian aesthetic. I think it's something that came about because of the fantastic elements of steampunk, like air travel, and again, trains is another big one that you see in steampunk a lot. There's a lot of train work, which for me is weird because it should have been diesel, but trains were steam powered actually for a very long time. So,
Yes.
um, but yeah, no. So lots of cogs, gears. What does the wardrobe look like? Again, we already kind of covered it. Make your leathers brown instead of black. Cogs, gears, and goggles, and use brass and bronze for everything.
Yeah, I think so I've just been like thinking about it, like what Arcane and like Mortal Engines. Um, so there's also like Clock Punk, which is just
Yeah,
like all about like gears and wound up devices. I think there's a lot, especially like in these two, there's a lot of crossover.
absolutely. Yeah, when you look at Clockpunk, a lot of Clockpunk centers around the automata,
Yeah.
right? Like the Clockwork Boys and the robots that are all whirling gears and stuff. And we see that crossover with like things like Doctor Who all the time. In fact, there was an entire section of Doctor Who that was very steampunky.
Yeah, which I think that there, so we mentioned Arcane. I think it definitely is Arcane is definitely like steampunk and clock punk like
Well, and
combined.
what made me hesitate on Arcane after I brought it up. So Arcane's central story is about the oppressed rising up, right? But what Arcane did that you normally do not see in steampunk stories is they also showed the protagonistic side of the elite. And so you had good guys and bad guys on both sides of the dividing line, and that is not something you see in steampunk a lot. Generally, the elites in steampunk are very close-minded, hoity-toity, and you only go to them when you need funding. Um, Very rarely are they portrayed in a protagonistic sense, and Arcane did that. If you haven't seen Arcane, you know what? Just mild spoiler warning in case it comes up. And you should really go watch Arcane. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
throw that out there.
Stop
I
doing what
will.
you're doing right now and go watch Arcane. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, go watch Arcane. Directly
Uh,
following this episode. Um, but yeah, no, I think Arcane. See, what makes Arcane hesitate is the fact that the technology is magic, right? And we can see a lot of their machines that are very like steam powered and very much more mundane, but they don't feature. They are not a central backdrop.
so that's why my argument there is also for clock punk, because even if it's like it's not really magic, it's not really powered by magic. It's powered by a magical energy source
Mhm.
that you know causes like these reactions. So it's not like wound up, but it's still like a lot of gear stuff. Like think about Caitlyn and her expandable
Right, the rifle.
rifle, right? Like that's clock punk. That's like kind of like
Okay, so
iconic clock punk.
I went ahead and Googled the most popular steampunk movies, and there were two on this list that made the top 8 that make me hesitate, and I want your opinion. And that's going to be The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and Van
That
Helsing.
makes sense.
And I initially balked at it, right? Because like Van Helsing and League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the League I'm going to give like between
Yeah.
the badass cars and the badass submarines, and that kind of stuff. Cool beans. Van Helsing, I had to think about for a minute because that aesthetic is definitely counter to what we would normally see in steampunk. But then we get to see things like his clockwork throwing glaives and the auto loading crossbows. Um, and I think I'm gonna give it some steampunk badges.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I don't know if I would say it's like fully on like steampunk, but I definitely see like the steam. Like my first thought when you said Van Helsing was the auto loading crossbow.
yeah,
Like, uh,
that can fire
so
like a machine gun, just chunk, 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 chunk.
so I would say it's at least steampunk sprinkled.
Yeah. I would say that absolutely. It's kind of like what
It's
happens when steampunk,
biopunk.
yeah, steampunk walks into a
Oh,
Spirit Halloween, a biopunk take. Let's get into biopunk here in a
ah,
Was
minute. We have one
no,
other
no, we
major
gotta
one.
go to solar in a minute.
yeah. First,
Well,
okay. So like we've been talking about like these dystopian kind of views. Uh, as far as I know, almost all of the like punk genres kind of involve the dystopian outlook.
mhm.
And that's where I wanted to also bring up, and I think this is actually one that's becoming more popular, and you're actually seeing a lot of it in real life in like designs and stuff, and that is solar punk, which is kind of defined by this utopian idea of getting back to coexisting with nature. So you get a lot of like greenery and like nature, like plants and flowing colors, like a lot of like you think maybe like
Solar
uh
panels.
yeah, like
Yeah.
eco-friendly energy stuff like that, and uh, linen kind of clothing stuff that's like handmade.
See, I think it comes with two distinct core elements for solar punk, right? And the first and most important one is going to be harmony with nature. I think that is a major one. You want to see your technology be at harmony with nature. Um, if you haven't experienced much solar punk, there's some really good media about it, but I think there's one that's going to be the most easily acceptable to most, and that's going to be when you look at solar punk, think about what Earth looks like in Star Trek, just less clean.
Uh,
Um,
there's two pieces of media that I think need to be mentioned, both Ghibli productions, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind,
Absolutely.
and Princess Mononoke.
Yep. I'm going to give you that one 100%. That's the whole point, right?
And like they're not like so solar punk is just becoming a thing really. So when those movies were made, they didn't get the tag of solar punk. Nobody really thought
Mhm.
about it, but I think they are kind of the quintessential idea of what solar punk has become, coexisting with nature. Another popular piece of media that I have to mention in recent history, the Horizon games.
Yes, absolutely. Well, so that brings me up to the two core elements, right? Harmony, your technology has to be harmony with nature. And I think the other side of it that nobody really talks about is its minimalism.
Hmm.
Like life is a minimalist life. You don't have grand palaces and castles filled with cool trinkets. You're living in like a pod on your farm. Um, and I think that
Oh,
those are the two things that really encapsulate it a lot. You guys, do have one piece I'm going to bring up as the dystopian side, but what do you got?
Big Hero 6.
Oh, well, hell, that's perfect.
Yeah, the city, whatever it's called, San Francisco or
Yeah,
whatever the fuck
New San
the
Fran
city.
Tokyo.
Yeah. Uh, it's like
No,
Okay.
yeah,
yeah,
no,
very
that's
colorful and,
absolutely.
and green with like the energy elements like reflected in kind of this like solar punk ideals, right?
Well, and you can see this media kind of take place in lots of different types of storytelling. So that's the most popular and most common, absolutely, is like the on-planet stuff. But there's also a whole section of solar punk that deals with space travel, and using your plant-filled ship to recycle and create its own environment. And I really like solar punk. Now, the vast majority of solar punk is defined by harmony and contentment. That's kind of the whole point.
And and
There,
and the punk part of solar punk is rebelling against like the norm, the
yeah,
conformity of just like exploiting everything
the
like we have done.
industrialization.
Yeah.
There are some elements that borrow from solar punk very heavily that are still very dystopian. Um, I'm going to recommend an animated series on HBO. It is my favorite, I think, animated series. Um, that's not. Oh man, it's hard to. It's one of my favorites. I'll leave it at that. It's called Scavenger's Reign. Now, Scavenger's Reign is a story about a crew of a spaceship that, through catastrophic failure, end up stranded on a planet, an alien planet that barely supports their life. And the solar punk comes from them using what little bits that they can scavenge to build a better life. And it ends up being very solar panel minimalism, learning to be at harmony with this alien planet instead of forcing the planet to bend to you. Highly, highly, highly recommend. check out Scavenger's Reign. If you like space stuff, if you like solar stuff, if you like nature stuff, go check out Scavenger's Reign. But yeah, I love me some solar punk. I wish it would have come about earlier, because it's kind of the polar opposite of cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Like,
and I think the thing that I think is most interesting about solar punk is that it's actually like a really common like idea in our modern like real life culture, like people designing our architecture around sustainable eco-friendly kind of designs. It is very common these days.
oh, absolutely. Well, and we've seen a major cultural rebellion against our basic ways of life with stuff like that, with the exploitation of our rivers and our oceans, the mass stripping of our forests. And you're starting to see solar punk really come out as a combat against that. I think, we had the solar panel kind of revolution happen in around 2000. The solar panels started becoming much more available. Hell, I have 3 of them on my house as we speak. I love my solar panels. And the concept is still out there, where there's 2 major arguments. They're only about 20% efficient, which is true. A solar panel is about 20% efficient. We could also power the entire world with a valley of solar panels set up in the Sahara Desert. And you should Google some of those numbers if you're interested. It's kind of cool.
Well,
But we're seeing. Sorry.
we'll never do that though.
Oh no. Well, and therein lies the punk of solar punk. How do you convince a world run by hyper wealthy industrialists to stop killing the planet? Because they won't. They have all the power, they have all the money that you need to build the solar farm or the hydro farm or whatever.
And
But they won't do it.
that's why most solar punk stories and media like revolve around a kind of a utopian setting, because it's like
Yeah.
we have surpassed that, and got to a good spot.
Yep. All right. So we've got about our last 15 minutes here. Let's shift over to diesel. We've mentioned it several times. Let's talk about diesel. Now, diesel punk for me covers a wide stretch of stuff, and so I want to focus in on what I consider the most popular, and that's going to be the Mad Max kind of end of the world, guzzling aesthetic that we see. What's that? Bones, help me out. There's a big music festival and car show that happens out in the desert. That's all Mad Max.
Burning Man.
No, not Burning Man. That's an excellent example though. Yeah, we're just gonna go with Burning Man. Yeah. And so this aesthetic rose up not from the first Mad Max movie, but I think from Thunderdome. And calling it diesel punk is itself kind of a misnomer.
I don't know that I identify Mad Max as diesel punk.
Really?
Yeah, I think diesel punk. I think Sky Captain. I think BioShock. I would say Captain America: First Avenger.
True.
Rocketeer.
Diesel punk is typically defined by like this like 1930s, 1940s, like World War II era aesthetic, with diesel powered stuff.
Yeah, that's the way I describe it too. Is diesel powered retro futurism is where I would put it. If you ever watched, actually to use the Marvel stuff, first off, Captain America is a perfect example in my opinion. I think that's fantastic. But there's a movie that you go to the World's Fair. It's a big allegory for the World's Fair, right? And we have Tony Stark's dad up there with like flying cars and shit that don't quite work. That's diesel punk. It's World War II led into the Art Deco style world.
Yeah, it's like the BioShock games are like to me they're the definitive diesel punk kind of aesthetic. I mean, they're diesel punk stories. Like,
true story. So this is where we get some crossover on Google, because again, Sky Captain: The World of Tomorrow. You don't get more diesel punk than that, I don't think. I would put Snowpiercer in there, myself.
Yeah,
but also Wild Wild West pops up when you Google diesel punk movies. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. All right, cool. I would honestly throw Snowpiercer on there.
Yeah, I would say Snowpiercer is very much fits the dystopian. But I also think we should cover it was like in our last few minutes, kind of as many as we can, because we got a few others that are like really popular in very specific mainstream media.
Okay.
Like,
So
a,
as we transition, then, if you're not putting Mad Max and Diesel Punk, where would you put it?
I mean, it doesn't have to be like not everything has to be a punk genre, right? Like Mad
I
Max can
suppose
just
that's
be
true.
post-apocalypse. Like,
That's a fair point, actually.
you have since we're okay, so moving on from Diesel
Moving
Punk,
on,
we have
yeah.
uh, 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 Atom Punk, which
Oh yeah, Fallout.
is yes, Fallout. That is the quintessential. Earlier, I think the Jetsons,
Ooh, yep, 100%.
Yes.
uh, and then of course you can't forget one of the greatest movies ever made, Iron Giant.
Absolutely, easy, easy
I
peasy.
think those are all those kind of Atom Punk is like the future technology, lasers and all of that stuff, but with like a 1950s aesthetic.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think Jetsons really wrapped it up well because that's exactly right. Like Jetsons are when it worked, Fallout is when it didn't. Um, and so
And
yeah,
yeah, that's I mean that's pretty much the definition, I think, of Atom Punk, and that's what you those are the most common, I think, piece of media. I can't think of any books off the top of my head that I'm like, oh, that's Atom Punk, but I'm sure they're out there.
oh yeah, I'm sure a quick Google search. But in any case, looking at our time, Eric
Uh,
brought it up a minute ago. Let's talk about Biopunk.
Biopunk.
yeah, Biopunk, Orphan Black. If you haven't seen
Orphan
that
Black,
show,
yeah.
that is like that is very I mean dystopian future like.
Uh-huh.
So
All the Resident Evil.
Biopunk is defined by like changing the body in some way, and not necessarily like cyberpunk, like uh, installing
No,
upgrades, but like
it's a wetware, not
engineering,
a
like yeah,
yeah.
It's like engineering the body to be better using biotech and genetics.
hmm We've
A
seen a lot of
Fly.
that. Yeah, The Fly. We've seen a lot of that really push the envelope because I mean, there were whole superhero shows I think through the 90s where the whole thing is they got infected by some virus or whatever and now their skin grows out. Think very like Kaiju number 8, right? Um
The
it's
Fly.
all The Fly, yeah.
Yeah.
Um all biopunk. I mean, anytime you're messing with your genes
Yeah, or
to
cloning,
yeah.
stuff like that. Like Orphan Black, I mentioned, is like it's a show about clones.
Yeah.
Another good movie, or I don't know, it's another movie that I enjoy, a horror movie called Splice.
Yes.
Very very biopunk.
I'm actually so glad to hear you say that. It's one of my favorite movies ever. I love Splice, and everyone hates it. I don't
The,
get it.
the ending gets a little weird for me, but
I mean,
overall, I think
yeah,
it's a good movie. All right, well, so I did mention Clock Punk earlier as well, and I think to talk about that, the difference between a lot of that is like think like Da Vinci level, like when you think about Leonardo da Vinci sketching his helicopters and stuff like this before any of this existed. That's kind of the idea of Clock Punk. Just
yeah.
quickly.
Actually, that's perfect. Well, and so
Uh,
you have the
Stone
exact.
Punk.
Yeah, I was actually about to bring up Stone Punk and Cave Punk, where it's like you have the exact opposite, where it's just like imagine a world that never developed technology, like we never got past the hammer, and um, and so you can get
uh,
That there, there's
extremes.
mostly like parody builds from what I've read about it though. Um,
Well, and
it's
that's
like a lot more themed cons. It's not like a common thing that people are doing at cons
well,
currently.
Stone Punk and Cave Punk
So
came up as a satire for the rise of punk cultures and genre. Because everything
yeah.
was all about like steam powered computers or cyberpunk mega corporations and all these advanced technologies and amazing things. Um, Stone Punk is not that. And it's all it was.
I wonder.
Um,
So have you ever watched the show Doctor Stone, the anime Doctor Stone?
no, I have not. I've had it
Oh,
recommended to me though.
I wonder if that kind of
I have.
it's like in the beginning maybe kind of stone punk because they're starting over, but I don't think it's pretty interesting. Um, Myth Punk.
Myth Punk.
It's I don't
There's
think
got to be
really
some movies
it
for that
Yeah.
one.
doesn't really have a defined aesthetic, but the quintessential I think modern thing that would be there is American Gods.
Yeah, exactly. Is it Into the Night Garden? Would be
Basically
yeah.
everything that Neil Gaiman wrote is Myth Punk.
Exactly.
But Myth
Yeah.
Punk is kind of just it's literally just like the definition of like is taking common myths from any like culture and just like retelling them in kind of a different
we can
way.
actually see it in a major one with Percy Jackson.
Yeah.
Again, the aesthetic is there, but it's kind of defined on what mythos you're working with. We actually have one coming out in less than 2 weeks. Aztec Batman.
Yeah.
Aztec Batman is 100% myth punk. It's a retelling of a familiar character under the guise of a cultural
you just
overlay.
remind me. Another great solar punk example, Wakanda.
Yes, I didn't even think about that. 100%. Even their minds and stuff were very like controlled at harmony kind of thing.
All right, so we're kind of getting towards the end here. So I think the big thing we have to do is pick where we want to live. So if you got to pick your particular punk, what are you going with?
Listen, the only sane answer is solar punk.
Solar,
okay?
yeah. Let's assume that that's the sane answer, but
yeah, you can't go with the safe one.
Man,
well, I'll go since everybody's thinking. So mine would always be Cyberpunk, just because I was always a big Shadowrun guy. I've always thought it was pretty cool. I played the Super Nintendo game, then I got into the TTRPG. I like the mix of magic and sort of machine, and then the way you can go inside computers and stuff like that is pretty cool. So I would lean the most towards Cyberpunk.
So yeah, I think that's a cool answer. I'm going to do the same thing as Bones. Solar punk is the answer. If I can't pick solar punk, I'm going to split between two because I love my steampunk. I still think steampunk has a decent quality of life, and I get a flying airship. So, haha. I'm going to bring up mage punk because I think mage punks, we didn't quite cover it. It's basically all technology that we use is still modernized, but it's magic instead. And so there's some fantastic novels out there about mages building rocket ships and exploring space, using magic to bypass those obstacles. I think mage punk would be a really, really cool one to live in, and I still get airships. So Spelljammer all the way.
Yeah, I mean, just for the sake of introducing one more, I'm gonna pick a goth punk.
Yeah,
which would be like stuff like Vampire the Masquerade,
Underworld,
or, The Crow, stuff like that. Kind of these like supernatural settings.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully, I get to be something cool and not just get fucked up.
Yeah, you just get eaten like day one.
Not be a ghoul.
But yeah, no, I think that's pretty cool. We are coming up to a close, guys. So if you've listened this far into the show, obviously you like what you're hearing. I'm going to encourage you at this point to do all that fun algorithm stuff, guys. It's very small efforts for you, things like clicking that like button and leaving us a comment on what kind of punk you like the most. Is huge for us. It really keeps the lights on around here. And if you're not following us, guys, you really should, because we know the way.
And I'm funny. But just so everybody knows, we are going to do the Batman stuff. So next week we'll do the Batman. We just pushed it off because everybody had stuff going on the last 2 weeks, so it was hard to get episodes rolling out there. And we really wanted to start October off with our Everything is Punk or Everything is Bones, depending on how you look at it. So yeah, we wanted to do the punk thing first. So we'll get back to the Batman like we talked about. It's not going anywhere. So we'll actually probably do it next week because we don't have a plan right now. So I like that. And again, it's going to be a lot of the older Batman stuff. So it's not going to be the things about Batman. It probably won't be this. This is going to be stuff that you don't know. And we're going to like really delve back into like some of the early stuff with Batman.
I'm actually really excited about it. I think that episode matches our spooky season October stuff really well. And we're going to get some fun paths, especially with the early day Batman villains. I think it's going to be really cool. And so I am very excited.
Real quick, who do you think is going to be this Batman villain that like they haven't released but has never been done before in a movie?
Oh, so I've been thinking about that. I have a few. For those of you that don't know, the next Robert Pattinson Batman movie has been kind of talked about in the background. We have learned that in this one, Batman's going to be struggling with his no-kill rule a whole lot, and they're going to be featuring a villain that hasn't been done in Batman movies before. Now, I have two guesses, and they're kind of...
You only get one.
I only get one?
You only get one. You only get one. That's the rules.
All right. Clayface.
Yeah, well, I think they said Clayface, didn't they?
Did
They
they?
haven't put out who it is yet. So there's one that they haven't released yet, and he or she is just a mention has never done in a movie.
Well, I think it's going to be Clayface because I think that it needs to be something big and bold for Batman. Clayface has always been, in my opinion, one of his most terrifying villains. And it never gets used because nobody wants to spend the money to animate Clayface. We got to see it.
I think it's
heavily
gonna
in
be
the animated
Firefly.
No,
series.
it's not going to be Clayface. I don't think it's going to be Clayface because Clayface was shifted to its own standalone movie. Clayface is getting a Clayface movie. That's what I was thinking about.
I did not expect that answer. Wow. Okay.
Mine's Firefly. I think that's his name,
Ooh.
the guy that rides around. And the only reason I say this is because Nathan Fillion played him. I think it was Nathan Fillion or somebody played him in the Batgirl movie that never got released. And it was really cool. And they talked about it. So I think there's a chance that they're going to do the same thing.
Maybe there was a version of Firefly in the Gotham show.
That's true.
So I don't.
But
maybe,
not movie.
True. I think maybe Killer Croc.
Killer Croc would be a good one.
Ooh, that is. See, and part of the reason I think it'll be Firefly too is because it has to be a small time one, just because the main villain you already know. It's going to be. I'm
if
pretty
they
sure they
were-
already put it out, so it's going to be a small time, like the Condiment Man type people and the Fireflies who just kind of make an appearance, get beat up, and then go away.
Here's what you do. You ready? You use Man-Bat. Use Langstrom. And then you can start building on a Justice League Dark universe.
Well, the Batman is separate from the DCU, so.
Yeah, that's true. But that would be cool, though, and more love for my Man-Bat. I love my Man-Bat. With that, guys, we're going to go ahead and bring this episode to a close. We're going to be coming back next week with Batman for Batman Day a little bit later because we didn't actually hit the date, and I'm super excited about that. So, yeah, do y'all have anything to add before we wrap up? All right, with that, we're going to go ahead and get out of here, guys. It's been wonderful talking about the world of everything is punk. I would very much encourage you to tell us what your favorite punk aesthetic and genre is down below. And if you're feeling squirrely, give us some recommendations on books and media. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. See you later, guys.